Hey guys, welcome back. I am Jason Salyer. These are my friends Patrick and Shane, and we are out enjoying this beautiful day right now. It is my favorite time of year, springtime, and I figured these are two survival guys considered to be experts in the field by very, very few. But yeah, a wealth of knowledge, and I'm just going to be asking them some questions, and then we'll see where we go. One of the questions I have for you guys is short-term versus long-term survival. So I think most of the time what we teach is going to be short-term survival. Most of the time.
Yeah,
that's
72 hours.
Yeah, within 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Hopefully you get found by then. What about, where does it change? What are the differences and priorities after that first, maybe, let's say 72 hours? What happens?
I would say that you really, the first 3 days, food's not that big of an issue. And like some of the stuff that you've gone through, you realize that. But as it progresses, there's going to, a point is going to pop up where I've got to get some calories coming in because your energy level's tanked and just, being able to have that ability would go a long way.
Is it going to be a decision tree that you're going to have to make? Am I staying? Am I going? Am I looking to be rescued from here? Or am I going to have to get myself out?
Is help coming?
Yeah. So I think part of that's going to depend on what work you've done prior to that. If it's me and I am going to stay with my down plane or whatever else, then while I am reasonably fresh, I am going to look to make the best shelter I can while I have calories and I have energy. I am going to do everything I can to ensure survival, at least from a shelter standpoint, from a water standpoint, from a fire, and then I'm going to look at food pretty quickly thereafter. But I think making a quick decision on whether I'm going to have to get out and self-rescue or if I'm going to stay is going to be my first consideration, and that will dictate what I do from there.
We love doing this stuff and teaching this stuff. We know all three do, but like a real scenario, that's going to be the worst thing you've ever been through in your life. People get into this, they watch these shows thinking, yes, it's fun doing all these skills and stuff. Real world is going to be the absolute worst experience.
It will be unpleasant.
Unpleasant.
You don't know what to expect other than it's going to be terrible. Yep. Short-term survival, food, like you were saying, food's not a big deal. Like it's not really going to be an issue. Building shelters, no big deal. 24, 48 hours even, you can still do all the things. Yeah. You can still climb up to the top of the mountain if you have to. How long do you have before you can no longer do that stuff in a survival situation?
It just depends. It depends on your physical makeup, the stuff, your past experiences, all that comes into play. But I'd say once you go through about a week and a half of no calories coming in and exerting yourself, then after that, it's as far as energy levels, it's just gone. Mm-hmm. And doing all this stuff early on while you have energy, have a big signal fire ready to light. Have static signals out in the open if you can. Just something to help somebody find you.
Do it while you can.
Do it while you can.
Yeah. Thoughts?
I just for me, survival is about resource management, and calories are a resource. Sleep is a resource. Water is a resource. Obviously, whatever tools you have with you are resources as well. So looking at it, we just recorded a podcast earlier. You talk about survival like a crocodile. I'm not doing anything I don't have to. If it's the heat of the day, then I'm going to try to get up early or work on the corners of the day so that I'm not burning unnecessary resources when it comes to sweat, when it comes to calories. I think being wise with your effort and dosing your effort and picking the times when you're going to maximize your return on your effort is going to be important. So we talked about elaborating on this a little bit, is kind of knowing your burn rate on your caloric intake and if you don't have a handrail for that, it goes back to voluntarily putting yourself in a position to where you are sleep deprived, you are calorie deprived, and knowing how you perform in those. So I think that's an important part of training is testing your boundaries so you know how you perform when things are bad.
Do you know what your boundary is? What your line is? Any idea?
No, but I know that I know how I operate within 72 plus, maybe 80, 90 hours with low sleep, little to no sleep, and little to no. I've been to the point of hallucination, and I've been to the point where I gotta take 15 minutes or so to lay down and rest.
Hallucinated based on sleep deprivation
And exertion.
Yeah. What was that like?
Pretty trippy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you did I see what I thought I saw, or
You didn't know if it was real or not?
I had another friend who did a 10-day Primal Quest race years ago, and he thought one of his partners dosed him with like some type of acid or something like that, and so knowing how to work around your own mental status at times, and knowing, hey, this is not going on, this is just me, and be able to kind of talk yourself through that, it helps if you're in at least somewhat familiar territory, mentally.
Do you have an idea where your boundaries are?
Yeah, about 30 minutes. No, I'm just kidding.
Lunchtime.
Yeah, about 30 minutes, let's call it. You can learn a lot from case studies. Yeah. I love reading about like real world experiences people have had and what they went through. I love reading about POWs in World War II or different wars and stuff, like escaping from a Japanese prison camp, and now they're, in the Philippines going through the jungle, and they've been, starved and mistreated for the past year and a half. And now they're spending weeks trying to get back, to a friendly territory, that kind of thing.
They started at a greater deficit than we'll ever be.
Oh yeah, escaping when you're 100 pounds or less because you've been starved for so long.
I can't imagine.
And then having to swim across the bay that takes all night long, and there's sharks, and your little loincloth that you had's now gone. Reading about what people have gone through when it's that difficult and made it through, made it through to the end.
Pretty impressive.
I think there's also, I know within me, what one of the things that helps motivate me is a competitive spirit. It's like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, and that's not
I can do anything you can do.
Yeah, it's not being cocky as much as I know it's been done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know that I know that other people have survived similar experiences, and so to me, mentally, it becomes a competition of if it can be done, then I'm gonna do my best to do it, and like Patrick says, doing some research and realizing, hey, these people survived. There's been a lot of people that have died that have had everything they needed to survive, and they shouldn't have died. There's a lot of people that never should have lived, that didn't have the skill, that didn't have the spirit, and they lived. Mm-hmm. And those are the ones to me that are more interesting. It was like, well, how did they do that? What was their motivation? And where did that come from? Yeah. And so doing a little bit of casework and studying some of this stuff goes a long way, but there's only so much you can read in books until you have to go out and experience it.
I've pushed the starvation, the sleep deprivation a little bit. So I know from personal experiences that I've got about 2 weeks of functional abilities before I end up just kind of having to lay there and wallow in self-pity. So 2 weeks of being able to build the shelter, be able to go
productivity.
Yeah, productive use of my body. So 2 weeks without really getting any calories in there and being sleep deprived. I can still build the shelter. I can still go gather the wild berries. I can still go fishing. But after about 2 weeks, give or take, it takes a nosedive. At least in my experience, where I just can't. Just picking up a stick off of the ground becomes this unbearable burden that requires so much mental effort. It's pretty humbling, actually, after 2 weeks.
You've gone deeper in that section than I ever have. Most of the stuff I've done has been within the, at max, 3 to 4 day range. Yeah. We're talking short term. Long term, you begin to shift priorities. Yeah. So.
You mentioned you mentioned sleep deprivation, hallucinations, and stuff like that. That's real. I mean, that's freaky stuff. I would have these crazy, I don't know if I call them hallucinations, but I call it really vivid dreams, where I don't know if I was sleeping or if I was awake, but I'd have these dreams where I was there. You know what I mean? Like I see my relatives, I'd see my family members, some that had passed on, and I thought it was the realest thing, and it brought tears to my eyes, and it was like this crazy, overwhelming emotional experience that I've never felt before or since.
Yeah.
And then you wake up in the same
And you're still in
cruddy shelter, and it's still cold or it's still raining, and that's a big part.
Your life
of it.
has not changed. Yeah. So that part, I would say is one of the more overwhelming parts of a survival scenario. Is losing your mind. Like you start to lose track of what's real, what's not real,
But you learn where the chinks in the armor are mentally, and hopefully we learn or are able to put some workarounds in place. I think early on, a lot of mine came through competitive sports and endurance events, and we have to allow our teammates and the people we're with to cycle through their own peaks and valleys. And there were times whenever I realized that a mental chink that I had was I might get frustrated whenever a partner might not be pulling their weight. And what I had to realize is that the same partner that wasn't pulling their weight when I was strong was the same partner that was pulling me through when I was weak and couldn't pull my weight. And so there had to be this reconciling of reality versus mental, reality versus what I think I'm seeing, and realizing my mind's sabotaging me here a little bit and putting this see the discontent or this bitterness in me that I had to excise out.
It's your perception, not necessarily reality.
100%.
Right.
And let me back up. It might have been reality,
but you don't know.
Okay, it may have been that my teammate was not pulling their weight at that time because they weren't capable. But that's the definition of teammate. That I had to cover for that guy, and later he had to cover for me.
Maybe they were giving you 100%.
They were giving me their 100% that they had to give at the time, and that was me being judgmental. And so that was I became a better teammate through that, and in the process began to really understand what teammate meant and how to work with people in the depths and the lows, and how, Patrick might be struggling. This is my time to do more work. It's like a marriage. We talk about it. People say marriage is 50-50. No, it's 100-100. And sometimes their 100 is not my 100, but we got to be fully committed to this process. And so you can be a better teammate when I realize maybe Patrick's struggling to just shoulder a little more of his weight, and then later on he's going to do the same for me, because 9 times out of 10 people rebound. I say 9 times people will rebound if they do the work. I guess it's what I tell my kids all the time is be the best that you can be the best you you can't control the people around you or what they're doing or how they respond or whatever, and regardless of the situation or the severity of it, but you can control how you respond to it and the work that you're putting into the situation to make everybody's situation better. And that's the key, is the guy that decides, I'm just gonna, you make a conscious decision that I'm gonna make this situation better. I think that's the power in that choice. A question that I see or might get periodically is, how do I start the process of becoming familiar with our own personal capabilities? And I watched one of your videos on Survival Dispatch where you took your family on a death march almost of can we do this? I think a lot of folks' survival strategies are unproofed and they're not based in reality. So how do you get that reality? And
if this happens, I'll do this.
Yeah, I'll just go to the woods and survive.
Will you?
Yeah. So I think rather than starting with something major like taking your kids on a 20-mile death march, if you don't know how your body functions with calorie debt, do a 3-day fast. And now what you have to do is you got to live your life. You got to go to work. And I think that's the important part of it, is go to work. Go work in your everyday, where you have to balance your emotions. You have to balance your ability to work with others. Maybe you don't start with 3-day. Maybe we start with 24-hour fast and work your way up. But I think it's important to know how your body responds when you're not getting the calories, how your body responds, and then more importantly, how your mind responds to a lack of calories. And that's something that's low-hanging fruit that you could do starting tomorrow or today, for that matter.
Patrick, question for you. What do you say to the people that say that just maybe they don't even say it out loud, but they assume that it'll never happen to them?
You never know. That's the thing about it. You never know when something bad's going to happen or a situation arise. And it might not be trying to survive for a week or two. It might be just getting through a rough night. I like telling people you never want the first time you try to do a task for your life to depend on it, whether that's making a fire, whether that's building a shelter, or building a decent enough signal that you can get rescued. Mm-hmm. If there's a possibility you may need to know that skill in the future, get out and practice it. Just get out and do it. Do it when don't just do it on a nice sunny day like today. Do it when it's raining. Do it when you're tired. Like Shane said, go 3 days without eating, stay up all night, then get out and try to do some of this stuff, just to see what it's like.
Can you learn everything from YouTube?
Skill-wise, possibly. If you're good at learning from just watching videos,
still got to be able to deliver.
You got to be able to do it.
You got to go do
and
stuff.
you got to push yourself or take a class where you are being pushed to see if you can still do it.
Yeah, I think that like in our day and age, there's a lot of benefits to learning things from videos, like the ones that I might produce. You can learn a lot from watching videos. I would say there's an advantage over that as to just reading a book. You can read a book and understand the concepts and why you would do it and maybe even how you do it, but the video adds a whole nother aspect to it. You can see somebody actually doing it, and you know that it's possible. You know that it's possible to rub two sticks together to make fire because you've seen somebody do it.
You can't learn it watching it.
Yeah.
You only learn it by doing it.
But you gotta eventually go do it.
I think about, I don't even know, maybe 10 years ago, Atlanta had what they called the snowpocalypse.
Yeah.
And even they did a bit about it on Saturday Night Live because you had people stuck on the interior of Atlanta for 18, 24 hours in a vehicle, and there were some real dire
people died.
Yeah, survival situations that emerged out of that in the heart of Atlanta with, in a lot of cases, with structures, with buildings, and people had nothing in their car. They didn't have a survival strategy because you're in the heart of the city, and it caught a lot of people by surprise. And so for every person that says it won't happen to me, I guarantee you every person that found themselves in that situation was saying, I can't believe this happened to me. Mm-hmm. And so I would rather be proactive and at least have a little bit of a handrail for how you perform in those situations and what you need to perform better, and have that in your vehicle and, or on your person that gives you a greater odds for survival.
Don't throw everything into gear. I don't think I've got to have this knife. I have to have this, and this. The skills are a lot more important. So get the skills and then take it from there. Then start getting into the gear and all that.
What do you guys think is the difference between people that are successful, if that's how you want to say it, successful in survival situations, that take ownership, take leadership in their problem that they have, versus the people that just lay down and die?
Mindset is everything. Everybody wants to know what's the most important thing. Is it shelter? Is it fire? Is it signaling? Having the proper mindset to continue to put that one foot in front of the other and still be alive at the end of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think most people quit at 40%. A lot of people quit at they quit at discomfort, not failure. Mm-hmm. They just are accustomed to tapping out early when things begin uncomfortable and begin to get uncomfortable, and that's a dangerous precedent to set because when it does matter, if you're tapping out at 40%, that doesn't mean you're out of that situation. You're just waiting on the inevitable. And so to be able to steal your reserve and to get your mindset right, that's the biggest tool in the tool shed as far as what you have. What we see, like Patrick says, and we're a company that sells a ton of gear, but we see people have a far more acute focus on gear and gear acquisition, and skill acquisition is way down the line.
Yeah.
And just like we see in our advanced bushcraft stuff, we see a lot of people that really focus on the knives they bring, and they're focused on big honking knives and what they feel like is a survival knife. And as the skill goes up, normally the knives get smaller and thinner because the skill has now trumped the focus and the skill has become the focus and not the gear, and it completely rewrites the priorities as far as what they need in gear wise.
Yeah. I think most people that watch my videos on a regular basis know that I'm not a real big gear guy. Like I rarely remember what steel the knife is made out of, or
Were you at one time?
no, never.
That's unique. Then.
Yeah, I've never been a gear guy. Never cared. What matters to me is, does the thing work or does the thing not work? That's what matters when it comes to gear. And if you could look at video analytics on this channel, and you could see how popular the gear videos are versus the skill videos. Yeah. It's a very obvious which ones are the most, where people put their priorities. And I just want to really highly encourage anyone and everyone watching this video to actually go out and test yourself with these, learn the skills, not watch the videos, learn how to do the concepts of the task, but actually go out and do it, because there's absolutely no, you can't replace that. You can't replace the actual time out there doing the stuff. That's
accomplishing it once under ideal situations. That's the beginning.
Yes.
That's not the acquisition.
Yeah, you
of
can't.
That skill.
You can't. I always go back to friction fire, because that's a big one that people understand. Like, you get your first ember doing a friction fire, and people are like, "Check, got it. I got friction fire." No, you can't. Yeah, I have failed so many more times on friction fire than I have been successful. So it's not even close.
That's where you learn.
Yeah, yeah. I failed a lot.
I think everybody, if you're doing friction fire, you've not got to fire more than you have.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's probably accurate, right? Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely the case for me, at least. Anyway, I hope you found this at least a little bit educational, a little bit informative, inspiring, perhaps. I would love to hear what you think in the comments. Make sure you're leaving tons of them for me. Even if it's unrelated, you can tell me what your favorite species of animal is. Doesn't matter at all. As long as you leave a comment, it's really helpful. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.
So we're with SE Knives and Reynolds Adventure and Training. You can find us on the social medias, Instagram. I think we're at SE Knives. We have our own YouTube channel, which is Reynolds Adventure /SE Knives. We have the SE Rat Pack podcast available on all directories, major directories, Facebook, and then of course we're on the World Wide Web.
Training website is randallsadventure.com. Pictures from past classes, schedule, what to bring, course descriptions, frequently asked questions, the whole 9 yards are on there.